I want to pick up on something. Neil Katyal argued this case. He says his hope is that the administration does not take this to the Supreme Court, but in fact takes it in the direction that the court suggests, which is Congress to discuss this. I have no such hope. On one hand, Congress seems to do Donald Trump's bidding. On the other side, these people have been facing these town halls at all times and understand that Americans do not see the benefit of sweeping, unrestricted, unbounded tariffs.
I think it's obvious that going to Congress is not on the agenda of the Department of Justice. As you said, they've already said that they're going to appeal. What is peculiar about the case is not the merits. On the merits, I think Neil Katyal is right, and the 7-4 decision of this court was clearly right. The International Economic Emergency Powers Act delegates all kinds of authorities to the president, more perhaps than the framers would ever have imagined. But it does not delegate to the president the power to basically replace Congress's carefully designed tariff scheme with tariffs of his own across the board on virtually every country, on almost every product. There are targeted tariffs that the court did not strike down. They didn't strike down the tariffs on various implements that might be relevant to a war, national security, steel, that kind of thing. But the across-the-board tariffs and the tariffs that the president is using, for example, to punish Brazil because its Chief Justice wants to hold its prior dictator, Bolsonaro, accountable to the law, and Bolsonaro is a friend of Trump's. That kind of thing is not within the International Act. But that's just the merits. The posture of the case is a slow-walking posture. Not only did the court say that it would suspend its ruling's effectiveness until mid-October, but it also sent the case back to the Court of International Trade to reconsider the propriety of a universal injunction in light of the criteria that the Supreme Court invented to limit those injunctions in the case of Trump against CASA. So the case is going back to the trial court. The trial court, it confronts a very complicated issue about whether this is one of those cases where universal injunctions are appropriate. While the trial court is considering that issue, the administration is appealing to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has all kinds of procedural things it could do to slow walk things. It can say, well, until the trial court has decided whether to uphold the universal injunction that it initially entered, we don't have to do anything. Remember how it slow walked all the president's criminal appeals. So we could see this going, into and past the midterms, for heaven's sake.
Yep.
And in the meantime, these obvious exercises of power that really belongs to Congress will stay in place. One of the interesting things about the opinion is how it reached into the debates for ratifying the Constitution. It recalled that Tom Paine asked the key question in the convention debate: how can we tell that this president will not become a king? And the answer that James Madison gave him was, well, he can't become a king because we haven't given him the power of the purse. It's only the people's representatives who can reach into their pockets.
Right.
And what this president is doing is reaching into everybody's pocket by imposing a tax.
Yep.
Taxation without representation. I think I heard that slogan somewhere.
But he claims they're all paying it. At some point, I don't know how many times we can explain to people, you pay it. You or whoever sells you the goods pay it. But it's
Right.
at that level. It's not. China's not paying it. One of the things the president said, and one of the arguments that he's used with respect to why this should be in his purview, is that these are international emergencies, and sometimes he talks about fentanyl or whatever the case is. He has said, he posted on social media in response to this decision tonight, he said he rebuked the federal appeal court decision, warning that a court order blocking his tariffs, quote, would literally destroy the United States of America. Literally destroy the... That's actually just not true.
Well, well, apart from that, if there's anyone destroying the United States of America, I think I know who it is, and he lives at 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's what's destroying the country. If anything, he's ripping apart the Constitution, paying no attention to its limits, basically saying if he wants to do it, he can do it. And we are confronting a situation in which it's very, very hard to stop him in time. Mm-hmm. And this decision is a good harbinger. And by the way, of the 11 judges, not one questioned that this was a tax. Of course it's a tax. The question really is it a tax that Congress has authorized?
Right.
And the court has said that, as Mr. Katyal pointed out, if something is a major question that affects the whole economy, then we don't assume that Congress has given the president the power to do it just because there are some words that might include it. And here, the only words they could find are the words regulate. Mm-hmm. It gives the power in response to emergencies to regulate. And interestingly, the Chief Justice of the United States, in the decision he wrote upholding the Affordable Care Act, said that there is a profound difference between the power to regulate and the power to tax.
Yep.
The power to tax, John Marshall said very early in our history, is the power to destroy. And this court carefully, this 11-judge court, didn't try to second-guess the president on these so-called emergencies. It could have done that,
yep.
But that would have been vulnerable on appeal because there's a lot of deference to what the president regards as an emergency.
Right.
It said, emergency or not, Congress has not given the president the power to do this in response to these emergencies, even if they are emergencies. So on the merits, the president does a very weak case. But in terms of dragging it out, doing what's illegal until it's too late to undo the catastrophic damage he's doing to the economy, there he's still ahead.
And therein lies the rub. Professor, I always feel, not that I'd have lasted more than about an hour in any of your classes, but I always feel like I'm getting a bit of an education from you. I appreciate that. Professor Laurence Tribe.
Thank you.
Harvard Constitutional Professor Emeritus.